Hello, Watkinson School, and America first. This is was Watkinson School. There's a Fred Grisette, who I don't know, who went out of his way to make exceptions to protect other with people associated with my street that I don't know. If I don't think I ever saw him around ever. In other words, they were attaching me to fake um, locations, fake words, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves with my town's police chief, and with 1 years ago. Apparently, with a new and demonstrably with a new one, I don't even know either. They make confessions through other people. Weathersfield officers recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that police chief Cintron and his daughter Jessica Cintron, people associated with them, recorded that, and with the courts rather, but also themselves recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that police chief Cintron had directed them to switch names and forge names while fabricating and replacing actually recorded audio and video with fabricated audio and video, other natures of federal rules of evidences, crimes, and natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles, and collusions coordinated on campuses and off campuses, on campuses behind people's backs, so they keep the same three branches of government, criminally foreign influence, and pretending other, and used remotely with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and private ones, and insidiousness A through Z, recorded also in collusions as how through the victim predators, specifically so we have to use other people's names as used with us, and they're pretending that we're using their names. Um, they're lying about their own emotions and passions and about ours. Like, for example, New Britain Superior Court has men and women that why I pretended passions and emotions, why I use their names. You know, to an extent, they don't know because they've been speaking through other people and they've been forging, switching names and making confessions roles. And you need to hide where and how others used confessions. And what's actually recorded is the ones I do know. The only exceptions were in context where they were criminally trying to create confessions. And in other words, criminally trying to pretend they were painting arrays of opinions and fake middles and fake communications with kids and with their parents, with the ones that did communicate with police and with criminals and as victims forced to be roles criminals further. In other words, and they wouldn't even have been the criminals in the first place had this not been sustained breaching method since before our founding parents were born at these locations. So there are roles with predicate acts on my street since I was a kid that people with colleges and universities and fire campuses intercities and roles with the policing of shopping centers intercities also had our family members and names also with military police families. So there was a Joshua Stryker and Eric Oliveri and a Craig Oliveri. I don't know them, and then if they have other, they have their family members, their extended family, the relationships between their parents and as adults. So they have uses of the relationships between men and women, and young men and women, and little boys and girls, where and how they've been locking them into uses of other people's names with narratives like of the boyfriends and the girlfriends interbranch have been locking the boys and girls that they get involved with, needing to hide identity theft, fraud, slander roles with overt criminal enterprises and with a whole bunch of other countries as the same identity of corruption here and there off on and off campuses and torturing each other for it. And so in other words, they can't keep themselves not criminally foreign influence because I don't even understand how they are. So there are people with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Motor Vehicles, involved in the Eric Jensen and with the Perone family and with the Kerr family. The Kerr family and the Perone family are people that went out of their way to pretend they knew me and time where I was going to be, and then pretend make it look like lot. In other words, at their house when they have a party, whatever, like that, make it look like they knew them, lie about how I knew them before that. And these are people that have been doing with this with a former mayor Gold and other mayors and their families, other levels and natures of politicians, of judges and prosecutors and their kids. Everyone speaking through others in a way that criminally do that. So they have uses of functions by the Chris Chris the comedian and Will Smith, Chris Rock and Will Smith, and narratives by, in other words, it looked fake. It looked like classic acting 101. Slap, someone goes like that, and the person looks like someone slapped. See, the networks involved with the Oscars are involved with making fake exceptions to keep how syntactically increasingly functional functions natural are by where and how exception. There are five distinct identities of exceptions in exception nature. Exceptions where and how, what we perceive. In other words, or not, what is actually simultaneously recorded is actually true. Is that which actually has exceptions and exception nature relevant to the truth. And note how liars use truths to lie, truths for lies. See, so we have to understand the nature of criminal insidiousness. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, thank God. The lawyers, but see, for example, there are hyper thank God. It means when someone honestly says thank God, trying to make positive value nature progressions, action natures means out of nowhere, or discerning a means to, rather than thank God we could be knaves because everyone else has been and we didn't start all this, and then people respond as knaves, like they do where by the breaching method sickly distinctly from our own A through Z. When Jim Crow laws are brought up, the breaching method measures and maintains its causes of Jim Crow laws, its uses of it remotely, Jim Crow laws, and the value of that, Jim Crow laws. It measures and maintains it, being and having been blamed on other things, others, ourselves. And standing identities of sophistication reliant upon that being and having been increasingly, because they are increasingly incapable of responding to positive and negative and to exceptions. The exception nature, honestly, there are so the branches of government individually grouped and together, like everyone else, are differentially but increasingly criminally foreign influenced. For example, there is an increasing amount of plastic going into the ocean reportedly. And so the surface of the value, overall, the value of Earth's difference will stay beautiful at the top, but we can see it, indicators of it. We're supposed to contemplate and understand the depths, the order of the finite. The order of that is too strong, mighty for us to deal with but one way. And we could, in other words. So, what they do at locations, for the three branches of governments that already made positive and negative treatments insidiously, simultaneously as insidious treatments of positive and of negative, simultaneously as insidious treatments of identity. So the easiest to solve answers, questions, and expressions. In other words, expressions can be solved, not just problems. But the way to do it, in other words, there was a Wendy Williams episode recently, or an advertisement for it, and they had one guy who was like I, I assume gay with that avert I don't like how they talk when they're angry and like pretending passions emotions towards the camera and regarding you know and now these are people who have been replacing Wendy Williams because well Wendy Williams I don't know what happened to her but she's been absent so people have been taking over her show. But right when they cut, so the guy made this thing, and then they cut right then to one of the journalists from Fox Connecticut News. Now there is too a reason why journalists are supposed to be licensed because they are using positives like that, not just truth for lies, but positives. In other words, it's supposed to be integrity. But these are roles with wire crime acts and methods, and with criminally foreign influenced identity the ground location uses like the spots next to Fox Connecticut News and on all Fox Connecticut News. Anyway, so then it cuts to him. He's like one of the guys, and these are one of the news locations that I know from calling them, and other people have tried to call the news media too, like WFSB, and they make all these lies with the people with the phones involved with wire crimes, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously from how their investigators retired and standing, and their interbranch sources have been wire crimes with their news sources, where they're attaching me and others to fake words, fake conversations about serious things like the World Trade Center, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people who did the same thing. Now, these are including with doctors attaching me and others to fake conversations, ties to themselves since I was a kid. It's a pattern of people from Trinity College who confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed roles with identity thefts, frauds, and slanders with names tied to and as ones on my street when I was a kid that were involved and are involved with private schools and public schools, coordinating identity thefts, frauds, roles with narratives of the leaders of the kids when forced to respond to things like fights and he said, she said, regarding that. And they go in and you go there and you get their narratives. When good things and bad things happen, both when good things and bad things happen, they're using this to lock each age of fact sheet nature at each location needed to hide details they are actually aware of. For example, there are various identities of rights groups forced by a breaching method. And those groupings have a natural course by our syntax nature, therefore by our natural function that is prevented by this criminal insidiousness nature of replacement slash S to it as systems all tactically ulterior, not just from the Native American systems, not just from their education system that would have been had they not been and stayed and staying victims low and above this, below the foundation of America and greater than it, and more finite than and greater than the foundation of countries individually grouped too. And altogether, everyone blames other things, others themselves, and then defends that, self-valuing it. So the January 6th Commission, for example, self-values roles with that craziness at each age of fact-sheeping nature, relevant to where and how, in other words, of the American people, because they already lied about behavior. They already have roles with collusion with behavior, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, other natures of criminal insidiousness. In collusion, where and how used remotely, is where and how each of their identity, the ground locations, and all locations are differentially increasingly criminally foreign influenced, and that being and having been relevant in juxtaposed ways to a whole bunch of distinct natures of organized crime and motivations between people, known and unrealized. For example, predicate acts, delivery system methods, roles, criminal insidiousness, delivery system methods, roles, that time where people are going to be walking to locations and where and how sequence shifts roles. With the uses of the allusions used to it are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed at locations relevant to where and how honesty shows and knows that Jim Crow laws and slavery and all against everyone sickly distinctly, that courts and police forms force, trick, hurt, persuade through criminal foreign influences and with delusions and with their own motivations, interests, um, uses of time simultaneously too fast and simultaneously too slow, while they've been attaching the value of everything, attributing it to fake values, attaching the value of our identity to our identities individually grouped together to fake words. They've been using crime methods to do this, like asking people to respond to summaries of other people's behavior that left and leave out sequence shifts and details they know show that and how they were acting criminally and are acting criminally. Police forms have the right to lie and have been exploiting exceptions and exception nature, where and how they don't have the right to lie and never had the right to lie. So increasingly, for example, they self-value, where and how they are knaves together, and where and how it was blamed on other things, others themselves, even when correctly. Like for how they blame, they obviously have officers either too stupid to blame or are right to blame, but they're missing the entirety of it. How they have different cultural narratives and natures with the police departments and with their A therefore B, with their logic tied to their how they get income, how other people have income or don't, and what it means. You know, really what is to the worst in criminal incompetence of lawyers A through Z, including the best ones. And really why how people can't afford lawyers, because those locations are still criminally foreign influence being haven't been used remotely. And those are evidences, those are hyper evidential things our founders left us to demonstrate about American history. So there are doctors with the Institute of Living that was founded in 1822. They have male and females involved with various Connecticut courts and with their family members and with themselves living next to schools and with houses next to schools, involved with and as their patients and criminals, also as family members of other doctors, of the campus's leaders, of like fire departments' names. The names get brought up into these circles and they're locking in sense and sensibilities to collusion against themselves and others when they were younger too. Where and how they're making all these confessions about the girls they're with, the interbranch, and then those girls about those guys at timed instances, locations that are being and having been moderated by like judges associated with Delafair families and with the families with other parts of Weathersfield through time, involved with houses on my street and tied to them as victim predator roles, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded. Also further with the principal sex child abusers campus. There are other natures of organized crime I caught them with juxtaposed, including more distinct natures of uses of upskirt natures of pictures of the kids and other natures of pictures of the kids. There are a whole bunch of kids through time and with the name and associated with the brothers and females in the families of Brendan Leahy, who has a father named Brendan Leahy, and other brothers I don't know the name of, but they were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They time where people are going to be walking. Then they made their roles with like things like taking pictures or syntactically telling some people that they pretend they knew people, before that. So there were a whole bunch of people involved with where I went to grammar school and where other schools I went before and after that who have ties to each other. And they have roles with that tie back to the houses that are still there and one that moved there, who was involved with the ones that were there before he moved there. And his wife, I don't know the way, I forgot their name. Because, in other words, these are also people that, I don't want to say the wrong name. In other words, they also name stack. And then they pretend there are criminal ways. If you bring up all these people's names, like when there's a police report, they have all kinds of falsified. They have roles like dozens of police reports against me fake, or like a dozen police reports fake since I was a kid, and like with exceptions, they make falsified police reports with different narratives, and then they keep saying they're making mistakes. They change the officers' names, put one that wasn't even the arresting officer. Then they had that officer walk in and make a look at the judge to make it look like he knows me. Make a fake exception right there at the last second. You can't afford time used properly, so they have to use time simultaneously. Too slow to hide, too fast to hide such things. FBI in their defendant capacities too, with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin as a co-defendant in 2006. Leading up to that, Thaddeus Grabowski as one of his co-defendants, and the family members and locations of the home of one of his other co-defendants, John LeConte, or not John LeConte. John LeConte's daughter criminally involved too, but John Bazzano or something. Not, I don't know, that's not the name either. Dominic Lapriata. Now these are people in a 2006 district court case. And just before that district court case, Thaddeus Grabowski and people on all Fox Connecticut News were involved with natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders instances, and with men and women associated with, and Eric Mendez and his brothers, with Weathersfield Police and Hartford Police Forums and other police forums and child programs, and people involved with the policing of the schools who were and are behind people's backs when they have no means to counter identity thefts and frauds and slanders, attaching people roles that pretended me and others to fake locations, fake words, and they put sequence shifts. In other words, they don't let people speak about the sequence shifts that are relevant to where and how people get mad sometimes when they have people speak things out, pretend that they have courage. They're tough guys. In other words, where and how they have the men and a whole bunch of men that shared the same girlfriends that were sisters, and they have Joe Spada. I never met Joe Spada. Now these are people involved on 2-Route Highway and Hang Dog Lane, where it runs into the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford, with people on off Trinity College and CCSU, with the intelligence community, with civil rights cliques groups that are black themed and white power themed and KKK themed, and military police also rules with federal rules of evidence crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and lies about me to little girls that went to my grammar school, all tied to a Debbie Gold, all tied to ones I don't even know the names of, tied to other mayors through time. These are the same ones that have been coordinating identity theft, frauds, and slanders instances. Well, even falsified police reports. They use falsified police reports to lock little kids and their families to fake locations, ties, and fake ties to other fake natures of ties to other people. So, further, we have people. There was a Joshua Julian, who was one of the ones on and off the Connecticut State. They have a Whiting forensics place who has mental patients and criminals and their doctors and their and people who watch their prisons were caught and involved with federal crimes together before they got caught, and since, and with physical delusions and against innocent people. And further, for example, with a principal child abuser that was used to also to force that, not told on, also has multi-front roles with federal rules of evidence reception crimes, federal rules of evidence crimes with NBC Connecticut News fabricating emails and typing faked, retyped fake things I typed on Facebook because they're lying about their passions, and they make people call them names like faggot, and then they pretend that they're perceiving it as a hate crime. They're getting away with it because they have men and women interbranch, individually grouped and together, how the women are roles, attaching men and little kids to fake words, making confessions about all these things at once. That's what communicated, not just what they say. And they know they're lying. They don't know the extent of it. Then pretending it's personal. I didn't know then, I don't know now. And the Spada sisters, 3 or more of them, and the Joe Spada. There are people on their street and tied to them who are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the Sal Saviello and Eric Jensen, who's one of the ones who said he was involved. I don't know if he said intimately or what with the Spadas, but it was also with houses next to him. And one of them is the Dearborn Street in Newington. Now this was from Weathersfield, and involved with the Eric Oliveri and a woman at Trinity College who, when she was a girl, made confessions to me when I was coming around corners, and who was also one of the ones who made confessions non-verbally confirmed. In other words, these are girls who got involved with their girlfriends who reported they had rapes of them and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're over there playing games with the same cliques, hiding lies with them, on federal crimes with them. So real or made up, really, that was confessed, demonstrated, recorded anyway. Joe DeMoro, his cousin Joe DeMoro, his brother Tony DeMoro, and the other Joe DeMoro's brother, John DeMoro. And then even a younger one I never met. I had one conversation with in life. It was over the phone. Fast recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. Weathersfield Police and Rocky Hill Police are involved criminally with the DeMoro family and with their neighbors with various natures of abuses of kids. Also confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed as medical families, foreign and domestic, with various natures of drugs crimes, as doctors with their patients, and fake ties to kids and fake ties to patients. In other words, even with the news media, they're pretending lie progressions to hide their lie progressions, to hide criminally foreign influence, remote uses of them as roles as federal criminals in cases that came before the courts, relevant to problems that are stayed before the courts. So overt criminal enterprises like Los Solitos and other natures of them are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the houses on my street leading up to the 2006 district court case in Connecticut that were also involved with predicate acts on off Trinity College in Hartford and on off Central Connecticut State University and locations next to it, like a hot dog place next to it, is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed through time, involved with the intelligence community, the military, how criminally foreign influenced. Also, this is relevant to their uses of black and white treatments and fake passion and emotions regarding what they believe about the passions and emotions of others, simultaneously while they have physical delusions and have to switch names and sequences and lie about what is court recorded and valuing already having been typed into the database as fake things. So now they can't respond. So they tell people to pretend they didn't understand what we say about things. Hi, Ron Adams. Greetings again. How are you? So I'm trying to get a response from when I caught them with the principal child abuser with the three branches of government. They have family members of and military have family members with the families that were at the campus, who all heard my names through others in the past, in contexts where they heard confessions about their friends and things they want to keep private because they were abused and things like that. The kids, the men and women and other kids that abused them when they were kids, they had them fit to identity theft, fraud, slander roles, and made it look like they were just pretending to be tough guys or whatever behind people's backs. This is an identity theft, fraud, slander method overtly / insidiously with uses of white or black. It simultaneously shows the uses of everyone sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously by a breaching method. And other having been blamed for with the breaching method deserves, because it is the responsibility, the cause of it. Today we speak about the same thing always is that I'm using what is hyper evidential. For example, WFSB attached me and others who called them up after they attached us to fake words, including me. I had no conversation with them. They attached me to fake words and about legal cases and about the World Trade Center, as WFSB has and had roles confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed by their sources, involved with people with Wethersfield and intercity with Rocky Hill and locations next to them, with the military, involved with all along Route 3 that goes by the state judicial branch offices, with corruption with the military that is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a whole bunch of ways tied to Two Rod Highway, and people who use my name with identity theft, fraud, slanders roles, and relevant to and as their roles with a whole bunch of natures like of untimely deaths and murders in Wethersfield and in Hartford. They have connections, even if they're made up. See, witch trials, even if they're made up, and slavery, to an extent we know it was not made up, but to an extent we know that they're pretending to this is the only thing we have recorded, so this is all we have to go by. They're preventing the value of what is simultaneous. So the simultaneous is always subject, and that's the identity the sciences share. Differentially too. Relevant to where and how constantly, some ways, and differentially other ways. So the science of what used and uses black and white is a science that had nothing to do with that. It assigned everyone and everything ulterior values as an identity of value progression, with to be functional for as which is simultaneously assigning different functions, not just know how when they associate cotton with slavery, they leave out how slavery was sickly distinctly North and South. They leave out how sickly distinctly it was against our founding parents, who, if they told their actual roles and motivations, and with honestly about and will for the Constitution to get unabridged, and for Marbury versus Madison to mean real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice, they would have been sensed through our own, and that would have been sensed by the breaching method through how countries individually grouped it together were extorted slave identities too, needed to pretend other presented means, handed means, like wealth. It means not what they say. There were distinct natures of wealth, and there are distinct uses of all of them by the breaching method, and all of them by our founders in counter to it. The counter to it is not to treat. See, they have the Democrats and the Republicans one type of knave or another type of knave, hurting each other simultaneously. And all exceptions and exception nature, collusion with that, because these are young adults and adults that had replaced the proper words and honesty, or they attach you to fake words still increasingly. And they keep the same three branches of government criminally foreign influence. So they use little identity theft, fraud, slanders tricks by making you arrive at a spot and locking everyone needing to pretend other emotions and passions and motivations for saying and repeating positive, negative, and neutral things about others, which all that they're painting peoples to arrays, to lists. Arrays and lists are values used by programming languages for the same reason. They're painting people to arrays in a list that are fake, but needing to pretend other, needing to make it look like other, needing to exploit sequence shifts and things to keep the appearance of integrity fake, and simultaneously as a weapon, wherein how they're pretending other simultaneously. So they're measuring and maintaining who could sense and communicate about that, and hurting everyone for their own motivations, natures, needs, interests. Because the same way they're backed into being victim predators, the overt criminal enterprises, people using guns and things like that to force others to shut up. Spreading, the only reason they get away with it is because the real reason they are grouped like that is by what has been exploiting how the countries are grouped here and there, sharing kids on and off campuses of each age, sharing adults, their family members, their cultures, all tactical ulterior from the human culture science that is syntactically conjunctive and hyperconjunctive to our functions as naturally we are functional. The only reason such could be pretended to be natural is because, and gotten away with, is because of criminal insidiousness has not been taught to us. And where and how that is not true, where people have been taught about criminal insidiousness, they have been lied to about it, and or have been self-valuing lies about it. And or they just attach everyone to fake words too. Still. So we're in an identity of negative value nature progression. So for example, the amount of plastic going into the sea is only increasing. All exceptions and exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. For example, for example, in the past, we knew the civil rights movements were blaming the government because they are the ones in the position with the insidious positive and negative treatments more so than us, that are in the way of this free speech to answer the questions about what caused slavery, the breaching method, to answer the questions about what caused the American Revolution. Counter-extortion caused the American Revolution. And thank God, means by it left by the Native Americans, having not given up yet. Because individually grouped and together, everyone, sickly distinctly, was locked into and as qualities of factor nature, roles as identity grounds, jobs, titles, identities, positive and negative treatments, sequence value treatments, syntax value treatments. Simultaneous value treatments where we are syntactically manifest that could not and cannot defend themselves. That could not defend themselves like that as styles of logic, A therefore B, and the value of exceptions could not defend themselves and afford counters, proper logic, and honest logic, proper to counter the fact treatment nature oriented predicate acts delivery system method that was leveraged against everyone as a database relationship. That was conjunctive to everyone's sense and sensibilities. Use Jane Austen's phrase. Everyone's nervous system. It was against the law to speak up against such things, unless through, all exceptions, exception nature, and demonstration of the same thing, unless they're moderated by the breaching methods, identities as colonies, representatives, individually grouped and together. Every identity of a colony is an identity of slave. See, everyone was sickly, distinctly enslaved by a semi-ancient breaching method that took countries A through Z, locations, areas A through Z, locations, areas, states A through Z of everywhere the species body is, to defenses of themselves needed relative to a fact treatment nature oriented predicate acts delivery system method relevant to it as a criminal insidiousness nature's propagation method that became manifest at all identity ground locations, areas, and states everywhere the species body is. And most criminal enterprises would not want, and this one does not want to get caught. But this one originally and still wants nature and needs nature to demonstrate it. In other words, most other criminal enterprises don't want nature to demonstrate it. That and how they are a criminal enterprise, a criminal insidiousness natures together, individually grouped and together. So, for example, this is relevant to where and how people got away with pretending not to be able to discern how overtly / insidiously New York City, the suburbs, residents of suburbs are sickly distinctly the victims of the ground being and having been tactically denatured to enable how, per a fact treatment nature oriented predicate acts delivery system method. So now the suburbs are like this since before cars, before our founders were even born. Slavery entrenched north and south, sickly distinctly, increasingly value that too. Not the people who are going to make positives out of negatives, but increasingly valued to our soul's nature that wants to use correlation to discern what's really going to be positive and also positive unto itself forever. See, but the means to that as a species body and as grouped is taken away because all those group differences were employed as styles, self-valued by those even at middle school and up, who are a certain kind of victim, everyone, A through Z, where and how we have these short meanings, these short words and revelations that are simultaneously that are the protraction of them, are simultaneously the proper long words. See, but what prevents simultaneously the short words proper and the long words proper at locations originally and still used the employments of the branches of government individually grouped and together, and all exceptions and exception nature tied to them. Prisons, the state judicial branch offices, state prison offices, their colonial equivalents. These locations had roles with slavery and are still manifest. There are still manifest uses of them per the same predicate acts delivery system method identity theft, fraud, slander method. So hundreds of names have recorded ties to the same house/s, recorded, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to roles, only capable of self-valuing roles of predicate acts with the Wethersfield Police. With now as Wethersfield Police and FBI are involved with them in their defendant capacities. Coming with former director of the FBI in his defendant capacity, involved with his lawyer too, Robert Chevrolet, approached me to demonstrate, like shortly after the Thaddeus Zabowski made confessions and demonstrations to me, with others non-verbally timed with him, like the Domains and the Mendez police forms involved on off Wethersfield Police Department, on off Hartford, Fox Connecticut News, and the buildings next to it, and the parking garage next to it, and with houses on off Hangdog Lane and Tura Highway. So these are, what are your opinions on the suppression of the alien life by the FBI? What's the alien life by the FBI? I don't know. I don't know what that is. There he is. The FBI, though. Former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, Robert Luskin. In 2006, he was in a 2006 district court case, and involved with other courts leading up to that, and with the depositions of him and his co-defendants. His lawyer too, Robert Chevrolet, is involved with people that were, since I was a kid, that were coordinated roles, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, roles with distinct natures of predicate acts and uses of that, and distinct natures of criminal and serious natures of positive and negative treatments and identity treatments and uses of that, uses of their own names with others and uses of our names with others, and other people's names with others. Do you think the government is hiding the aliens? The government is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, having been criminally foreign influenced, also with private tie to them, to pretend people make conspiracy theories. The governments of other countries do the same thing. It's weird how they, for example, use time simultaneously too fast, too slow, while they are stacking fake evidences, replacing what is actually recorded audio and video, and just totally faking up audio and video. They are kept needing to hide live progressions. It's how they're used remotely. It's how people A through Z are used remotely too. The areas of overt criminal enterprises are also recorded, involved. They kept needing to hide the same sequence shift, final act, progressive lies with it. Part of the way they get away with it is because I have programs with the kids that are also, as some of the kids are going into jobs to be undercover police forms, plain clothes. So they've been grouping criminal enterprises wrong. Like, for example, this is relevant to the predicate acts delivery system, actually discernible where and how. Syntactically, defenses of white/black treatments are either in collusion with the breaching method, or they hurt the people and attach you to fake words. This is about the police. This is about the police courts grouped and political families, like a former Mayor Gold and people on and off Millwoods Park have been identity thefts and frauds with him, with people on the child sex offender registry, and further with the principal child abusers campus, and for people further associated with uses of the child of a former principal of his school, other principals of the school, same school, and other schools too, like a Mr. Murphy. I never had a conversation with Aaron Murphy. Pharaoh Banks. I don't know who. I just joke. So in other words, This is about police, but there were also overt criminal enterprises involved with them. And they've been getting away with it because they have roles with like the Los Salitos members with Yukon recorded and confessed, and on and off Trinity College, also with military police, people associated with the name Oliveri, and houses next to the state judicial branch offices are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated confirmed involved with like Joshua Stryker involved with identity theft frauds against me with Dean Alford at Trinity College, and there's a Dean Judd and his family, and there are other people off Trinity College involved with like their patients and criminals and people that are associated with their probation officers and things like that. Those programs, those jobs, no industries, no. Those are all individually grouped and together themselves. Even easier to discern because they're not real people, but how they are having been employed for that breaching method. So they have Will Smith, they have Chris Rock and Will Smith narratives and responses to it, measured and maintained, used to adapt. Because, for example, their roles with journalists and journalism in those the network's locations, their databases, they have wire crime acts and methods, not just for the journalism, all the sciences individually grouped and together. The people that are trained to answer their phones have wire crime acts and methods roles, distinct from the wire crimes and acts and methods and roles that the journalists using the television face of themselves have. Attaching me. So there's a Roger Suzanne and further involved with people on the child sex offender registry. And we recorded further uses of the kids of a principal child abuser and of his own kids and other people's kids, further intercities with also doctors with their kids and prosecutors and their kids and judges and their kids and extended family members criminally involved. Then they pretend passions and emotions. Like, for example, in the news said that there's a Christine Tardet, who's also reportedly named Christine Bedard, who's probably one of the nicest people in there. But she said that I was using other people's names for whatever reason. She was making up fake reasons. They brought their names up because I caught their court. A whole bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court since I was a kid. I don't know if my grammar school. I never saw her in my grammar school in my life. I never saw her on my campus in my life until 1994. I had to stay back that school year. And the narratives of that teacher who had me stay back, it was behind my back to the principal. And it involved the people that are involved with I caught with child abuse, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and the narratives where they're pretending passions and emotions, where they're making people say things about them, react to themselves. So the Eric Oliveri, for example, has people with sexual communities involved with the locations next to the state judicial branch offices and next to the downtown, the state capitol, involved with that identity theft frauds with them and slanders. Also has the black-white themed roles with very juxtaposed natures of federal crimes with kids and uses of the crime method where they have legitimate means and needs to be involved with all elements of corruption and elements of criminally foreign influence, positive treatments, like criminal and serious natures of positive treatments. So I'm not lawyer, not police form, not criminal. People who aren't lawyers could have cleared this up a long time ago, but the lawyers have been fabricating audio and video and wire crime acts and methods. Like there is a whole family of people with the name Trantolo and Trantolo who have wire crimes with the phones methods with judges and prosecutors and child sex offenders and other natures of federal criminals and people associated with forensics locations all along Route 3 involved with them, also with various natures of federal crime roles and uses of their wire crimes roles with their television appearances and ad placements. They have an Aiello home services. I don't know if it's related to the Joe Aiello next to Buckley High School, and so, but him and is he's one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a Joe DeMauro and a Ray Claw and a Chris Walt and a Christopher Cullen with federal crimes with kids through time, and then they exploited it when they were adults. That also involves their roles with federal crimes with former Mayor Gold, with the people with the abuses of the kids, even sexual and medical, how juxtaposed, because they have recorded uses of how they have types of experts to type counter types of things. They have involvements with already those experts from the same places they come. Institute of Living was founded in 1822 in Hartford on the campus of Hartford Hospital, with slavery still entrenched in the North and in the South, sickly distinctly. Our founding parents left us to demonstrate how they could only counter extort that before the last battle of the Revolutionary War in the North, forcing it to eventually fight against slavery as means to defend itself, having been forced, tricked, and hurt and persuaded, counter persuaded to pretend roles other than were actual, with really what led up to them, with their roles that led up that as that which led up to the founders getting the Constitution said to get begot unabridged, and as quote real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice, as the summary of and as the substance of James Marbury versus Madison, which is all we need. See, sequence shifts are all we need, where and how lies have been used. In other words, the right to lie has been used where exceptions they don't have the right to lie. So they've been using the three branches of grounds, branches of government's locations, roles for identity theft that comes from through time. They have to hide lie progressions simultaneously while they have to preemptively hide them too. And worse. And that is everyone's increasingly valuing how all these different distinct natures of corruption and of insidious natures of positive treatments towards instances at location where in inclusion, positive and negative treatments are in simultaneously identity treatments, and they're hyper simultaneously identity treatments. Had computers been taught about with anybody by anybody honest enough to speak for the sciences relative to each age and nature of campus properly, we would have had this discerned. But not one has learned. And everybody passed out because this is long boring, but someone get the names of the interbranch on paper. Let's go. They've been using the Facebook pages of the federal judges remotely. And or they've been making themselves value roles with it too. And so then they keep most of them. Then the other ones are to keep showing because the proofs of it too show also how legal cases are being and haven't been used remotely, where and how the worst patients and criminals, all natures of them, and including innocent people, are forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded with the interbranch, kept needing to hide the same sequence, yet finite aggressive lies, identity theft, fraud, slanders rolls with them. Remote uses of shopping centers. No, that facade across the states and across the countries, relevant to the tactically, since before cars, designed suburbs, before our founding parents, with slavery north and south, entrenched. And that's still felt valued. So everyone's like, how could anyone deny that and how overtly slash insidiously, simultaneously, New York City is the victim of a breaching method that tactically denatured the ground below their feet, specifically to develop natures they're pretending not to realize, pretending they speak about positive and negative legitimately. Get down. I'll gather around. Let's get their names. So the news uses their people who answer the phones for them as collusions with the agencies and the branches of government, but also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and uses of them being having been grouped wrong because they have remote uses. They have roles with uses of local 230 is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with military police, and with the girls I don't know the names of, with sexual circles, and with a Joshua Stryker involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and this Eric Oliveri and others associated with Trinity College who were pretending to know me behind my back through time, attaching me to fake locations, fake people. So these aren't just people as adults bringing up people's names from the past. They brought their names up. They're using crime methods. These are all totally recorded. You can tell me who disbelieves. Let's get them named. Let's get one name. Who disbelieves for any branch that had involvements with any one of those police reports. Let's get them on paper too, because they do crime methods with when they confess roles with putting multiple narratives of falsified police reports into databases. You don't know which one to respond to, and they're looking to adapt, needing to adapt. So they have furthered the policing of the campuses through time, also in ways everyone missed, criminally involved. All programs with them, programs with the Marines, with the kids, programs with the and with all these people tied to Demorals and Weathersfield Pizza, were involved with names forging and switching, federal crimes with judges and prosecutors, sick things, and also with the sexual circles that make confessions about the little girls, and then they affect the girls to confessions from strangers. All these different guys share them. You guys are hurting them because you guys are playing this since I was in grammar school from classes. People ain't even in my class. There's a Chet Casper brought up by a Dr. Dingleberry or a Dr. Dewberry. One of them came up to me and made that he said he was gonna strap me down and inject me, which I saw them do to people, or I think I saw that. They made it look like Kent. In other words, but if I didn't sign a piece of paper, and the reason he did that, he gave the reason he gave was pretending I said what one of the kids associated with the Smith family over here said, who's involved with their mother on off the Weathersfield town offices, with Afghanistan families, with Police Chief Cintron, with one years ago, and with his girlfriend, and with Police Chief Cintron's daughter, Jessica Cintron, and with her extended family, Reno Mazzucato. Only he sought me out to confess, demonstrate, record roles with uses of Web School, which is one of the roads all along from Main Street in Old Weathersfield to where it touches Church Street and that right around the corner from that witch trial place, all the way from there up Wells Road, all the way into Newington and into on off Central Connecticut State University and Paul Manafort Drive, which is one of the news stories that was and is recorded, used effectively to keep CNN, nationally, internationally, criminally, foreign influence, distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously, to keep them motivations, natures, needs, interests of wire crime acts and methods, and of roles with their sources, with remote uses of locations, areas, and states, interbranch locations, and campuses. So people from Central Connecticut State University involved with the intelligence community and the military in the Britain through time, they have been involved with coordinated identity thefts and frauds for their kids, with their little kids pretending that they're just trying to talk themselves up by making things up about others, all kind of pretended motivations, real or made up, and delusions, but also mixed actual motivations recorded. And we need to have mandated law followed, because they're playing these games, stacking databases where everyone's forced to speak through other people, other things, other selves, and they're putting fake things in databases, and they're leaving no means to respond to it. And their uses of that continually at the next location. So it also goes back a whole bunch of ways. There was an O'Brien family involved with it, and the neighbors of him the involved with it. A whole bunch of people who went to my grammar school who used my name from other classrooms, and or in my classrooms too. Rob Heimgartner is one of the one was involved with men and women who used my name, and other people were for criminally foreign influence roles with a former Mayor Gold, and some people involved with overt criminal enterprises, and with Chet Casper. I don't know Chet Casper and his father and mother and his sister. I don't even know his sister's name. Never saw her. These are people involved with federal crimes on my street that are connected because they've been using people's, investigators, and their campuses have been used remotely. Their databases have been used remotely. Kept them needing to hide details they hid in cases, and with investigations, how they use those crime scenes to hide things tied to themselves and their family members having been used for identity thefts, fraud, slanders since people were young, offensively, timing where we're going to be to do so, make exceptions that they can't go back and be honest about, because part of the methods involves the confessions, distinctly affected by the breaching method and distinctly affected by the church. But the breaching method was affected to needs by confessions, by the breaching method and by the church distinctly. And this shows how non-distinctly. And this shows another way to interpret religions, which are also religious spots, are also involved with child abuses, even if they made that stuff up through time about where and how they forced child abuses, no one allowed to tell, and how they got away with it and get away with it. It's recorded. They attach everyone around them to fake words. So let's get a response for those real or fake judges in the background with the ad placements of Trantolo and the rest of them along Route 3, who used my name since I was a kid, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. Let's go. Let's get them down. Let's get them on paper. You can't call them back. They use little crime methods from their spots, like pretending people are harassment. If you call them back, it's in other words, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Trantolo confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. They make conspiracy theories about people. They attach people to fake lies and words, and then they summarize them fakely while as rolls with the WFSB and other networks with them criminally foreign influence. Even worse, you'll see. Let's get them. Watch their sick fucking. Excuse my language. Watch their sick natures, and note that when you see them walking up. Oh, Trantolo. Watch them. Make sure I get a response for the news media. Now. Make sure they ain't their branch. Get them on paper. One name and sequence. Now. I want a response for the campus, too. Now. And make sure they say sorry to their kids. The kids from the Britain Superior Court who have their parents work there. Now. And respond for that scumbag, John Maiano and his brothers. Now.